out of the pits again, so it must have only been a stop for a quick check.
The scrap that we saw at Wanneroo Park last week involving Larry Perkins and Gricey was sensational, and I have no doubt this is going to be equal to that. There's Graham Hurley from Western Australia getting the Tartars from the Commodore boys.
Never ceases to amaze me how well these fellas concentrate when they're just so close to each other, and whilst all this is going on, there's generally somebody else only within a 1 or 2 second gap. Listen, who's just blapping on the throttle trying to get power to the ground. That's the problem you have when you've got 440 horsepower and a very heavy motor car. It's so hard to convey just how hard these things are to drive. And look at Grice trying very hard to squeeze through. You'll notice that Larry takes a very wide entry.
Oh, almost on the wall. Checking out the mirrors. The man in the Chickadee Bob Jane car is still there. The other point we raise is that, of course, Graham Bailey, Chickadee man, who, of course, supplied the car for Gricey to run at Bathurst last year, and they won the race together, has been sticking with Gricey with support throughout the year, and that's great to see. Graham doesn't want to do any driving at the moment. Here's Graham Hurley into the pits for something's gone wrong there. The motor was off song the last couple of laps, called in to see if they can rectify it. But there's Perkins again, just locking a brake as he heads through the Bridgestone S's onto the Speedway Bowl, and now down the Yokohama back straight towards Motorcraft. Let's check the placings for you. Still, Queensland's #1 in front. Georgie Fury, Adelaide International Raceway. Larry Perkins now. Right behind him is Alan Grice. So close. Ace hit him. Perkins has gone sideways in the NZ Connectors. Commodore waltzes around the front of the car. Everything comes to an abrupt stop for a while, and away goes Grice. A little bit of contact between the two cars in this round of the Shell Ultra Touring Car title.
Well, what a sensation. The two of them were nose to tail last weekend, and they were rubbing mirrors. They've rubbed more than that this time. So Dick Johnson, flashing headlights, leads the pack away. The gap at last count was 3.3 seconds. And let's take a look at that replay once more with the compliments of Shell. They were down at the bottom part of the circuit. Grice plunging in under brakes. Did Larry lose it, or did Gricey give him a little help? Make your own decision.
That's the hit there. That's the hit. It was 50-50. Wasn't much.
Look at Larry.
I'd say 90-10.
Whose way?
I don't think Larry'd be too excited.
No. That's how it all happened. Meanwhile, Dickie Johnson of Brisbane leads in the Shell Ultra High Cosworth. Comes down the back straight, and I'll tell you what, Dick is opening the gap all the time over George Fury by the look of it.
Is he ever? I'll check the gap again. It was 3.3 when I last stopped the clock.
George flat-spotted a tyre a few laps back. I don't think that'd help his cause.
Alan Grice, I think at this stage, would be third on the road in the Bob Jane T-Mart's Chickadee Commodore.
That's the all-time recovery.
Is it what? And fourth place held by Gentleman Richards.
Followed by Larry Perkins, who's now got Peter Brock hot on his hammer. The gap is now 5 seconds from this man here, George Fury, up to Dick Johnson, race leader. And as Pete mentioned, he had lots of problems with flat-spotting tyres coming into the left-hand approach to the bowl. But Pete, you ducked out for a moment to check on Glenn Seaton's problem. What was that?
Yeah, Space Age Communications. I footed it over to the pits. The simple but sad message is motor. Glenn Seaton has blown a motor, or a motor problem of some description. While I was down there too, Danny Holm is now a retiree. His problem was a turbocharger.
Well, that's certainly bad news for those two guys, but great performance here from Dick Johnson. How long has it been since we've had a Ford victory in Australian Touring Car Championship round? Dick Johnson looking pretty good for it at the moment.
Yes, I tend to think that the Sierra of Dick Johnson and even Jimmy Richards are the two guys that will fight this race out come lap 60.
Well, the battle for the minor placings is a long way from over at this stage as well, because Brock isn't too far away from Larry Perkins, and Gricey's just done the best recovery of all time to get out of all that, although his car didn't go round. And you'll notice when we had the Shell replay up before, he virtually was able to select first gear and just go again. Larry took a little longer just to get things sorted out, and probably just to get a few expletives out and carry on from there. Thank goodness Larry didn't have race cam. Good pictures, bad audio. So the order at this stage of the game, we have Dick Johnson leading from George Fury, and then further back in third place coming onto the bowl is Alan Grice in car number 2. There he is. He's just passed Peter Williamson in car number 77, the Toyota Supra. And then a fairly comfortable gap back to Jim Richards, car number 3. This championship just continues to be wiped clean, and we start all over again. There's no comedy nominators. Everybody's had a bit of a chance of having a pole or a win. And Alan Grice, you had some drama down the bottom of the straight. Give us your version.
You noticed that, Mike, did you?
Oh, just a bit, that's all. I mean, what would you put that one down to?
As you could see, the previous 10 times or so, Larry was having trouble with his rear brakes, and I was getting it a lot deeper than him. And on that occasion, my car was sliding all 4 wheels. He was having more rear brake trouble, and he stopped earlier than I thought he would, but my car was already sliding. If I'd not... Just gets a bit greasy here.
Yep, go for it.
If I just stayed on and tried to stop my car and brake my car, I would have gone into it much, much harder, because my car was already sliding and we both would have been over in that wall. As it was, I still had some control and I was able to stay off him. Well, I'm not real sure. I guess these Yokohamas are gripping pretty well for him to be able to not avoid hitting him right at the eyeballs.
Well, you think Larry will see it all that way?
Larry's never happy after a race. He gets this sort of blue haze that comes down.
While we're talking, Alan, we just got a shot of one of the JPS BMWs coming into the pits, and in fact it's Tony Longhurst with smoke pouring off a tyre, arm out to tell Curly Gardner and the boys need some more rubber. Sorry to interrupt our little discussion, Bob.
No, it doesn't surprise me all that much, because it's obvious that the reason Jim has slipped back from me, and he's just coming into the straight now, it's a long way back. Yeah. Obviously the reason that's happened is his tyres are going away, so the old Yokohamas are doing a good job today.
They certainly are. Thanks for the plug. We'll come back and visit with you later.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you, my man, Alan Grice. Meantime, a little bit of panel beating going on.
Oh, no, they've dropped the car on the disc. They've actually released the air hose. They don't have a left rear tyre on there. This is sloppy pit work, and Frank Gardner won't be a happy man. The cardinal sin to drop a car before you've been cleared by the crew. Normally the crewman stands up, raises his hands in the air. Oh, there'll be some teeth gnashing going on there. Gricey's story sounded a bit like the bloke whose chin fell on your fist, doesn't it?
Yep. There's Murray Carter's Netcom Nissan Skyline.
He spun off about 3 laps ago down onto the entrance to the bowl. It's a pretty unusual sort of a spot to be parked.
Yes, he had a brake lock-up of some description, and smoke pouring off it as parked off there. Meanwhile, Tricky Dicky still leads it. Will today be the day? And both you gentlemen carry more notes than Gulliver had travelled. When was the last touring car race for a championship that Dick Johnson won? Come on.
Next question.
No, you're the experts.
I haven't got my buzzer with me.
Well, it's...
Sorry, Wilbur, you're
the last touring car race, or championship touring car race.
Yep.
The last touring car race would have been...
Adelaide Grand Prix 1985.
Yeah.
No, you're not off the hook. We're talking about the touring car championship round. It's been ages. But I tell you what, there won't be a happier guy. I tell you what, our Queensland viewers will be delighted if this man can finally crack it for one. He's tried so long with the Mustang, almost had Lakeside wrapped up, all the troubles with the tickling of the turbo, and today he leads it and is leading it comfortably. Everything is falling into place for Queensland's Dick Johnson. Let's check the placings at the moment. Tricky Dicky, go get him, boys. We're on lap 53 of 60, round 5 of the Shell Ultra National Touring Car Championship. Taking time out to follow Cole Bond in the Caltex Alpha, number 75, running 8th at the moment. 7th, I should say. And performances getting better each outing for Colin Bond in the Caltex Alpha team. Should be very pleasing to Enrico Zanarini and all the folk at Caltex who have backed Colin Bond. New car, started the season off really feeling the pinch a little, but they've developed in association with the Bonica boys of Melbourne, and the car is just getting more competitive at each outing.
Bondi had the boost well and truly boogieing in practice yesterday in the first session and was up amongst the top 4 runners. But then they had a problem. They changed their race engine between sessions and they found that it wouldn't take any water. They couldn't get water to run through the system. So they've had to go with a more conservative boost package today because it's an older engine and it's virtually been cobbled out of parts or remnants of the Wanneroo escapade. But as you say, quite rightly, Mike, the good news with this car is that it is coming together and we're getting more and more brands involved in the battle.
Well, I think when you consider they have 10 cars inside 1 second, that is just sensational stuff. And that's happened here today in Adelaide.
There's Brocky. He's in 4th position at the moment. Pretty good recovery from him. Greg Hansford in the pits for the 2nd time. And Brock making the best of some other guys' misfortune. Well, Hansford has called in for tyres this time. It doesn't appear to be a misfire, which was the drama in that first stop. And it's a pretty slow old stop. They certainly weren't ready for something like that, although most of the guys said that their tyres would be marginal by the end of 60 laps.
Well, we don't want to Jonah dig, but
no.
This could be a portent of things to come, perhaps.
Not too many laps left.
So 5. About 5 or so laps remain. And just when we thought that Nick had Lakeside wired, you'll recall, Turbo played up and he was into the pits. But at the moment, Brocky running back there and about 4th on the road.
Well, the gap between our leader Dick Johnson and George Fury in 2nd is 7.3 seconds. And then it's another pretty healthy gap from George back to Gricey. Gricey still in 3rd, 2.4 seconds in fact. And then the split back to Brock as he comes down the back towards the Motorcraft turn into the bowl. We've got the watch running at the moment. It's actually a country mile. It's about half the actual size of the bowl. But nevertheless, it's points for Brock and the Mobile team, and it's 13.9 seconds.
And Jim certainly looks as if he's struck some tyre problem. He's dropped down a couple of seconds a lap.
Yeah, he certainly has. Which is a surprise because it's the lightest car in the field other than the real small Geminis and what have you. And just over or a tad over 960 kilograms. It shouldn't really be wearing its tyres out, although I know I've said it before and I've had discussions or debate on it, but the BMW constantly looks to me as though it's just a fraction tail heavy. You've driven the car, Pete. What's it like?
Oh, it's a beautifully balanced car. I know what you mean when you say it does appear tail happy, but I think it's got, what, 300 odd horsepower now, and in that weight package, it's got a great power-to-weight ratio and gets the tail out very, very easily.
So does Brocky's car, and he's working hard at the wheel at the moment in 4th position. They're certainly not having a go at Frank or the boys. They've just engineered one of the prettiest and best handling and nicest cars you'll ever see, but it just does seem to have a slight oversteer tendency, and I just wonder whether that cooks their tyres up.
Alan Moffat was telling me during the week before he took off back to Europe that there is little resemblance between what you're seeing of the M3s in Australia and the M3s in Europe. He said that they're almost, they look like they're powered with 350 V8 Chevys the way they accelerate over there. Here's the man who leads round 5 of the Shell Ultra Nationals, Queensland's Dick Johnson. What a way to plug the sponsor. He carries the tournament sponsors' logos over his car, and he steams onto the front straight here at Adelaide International Raceway. I'll tell you what is becoming interesting, and you'll notice shortly. George Fury is running 2nd on the road, but getting closer to Fury is Grice. There's Johnson as he comes down the front straight into the right-hander. Fury still in 2nd spot, and Alan Grice 3rd. Peter Brock is 4th, but a long way behind the tail of Grice. Then Jim Richards in 5th spot. Larry Perkins is 6th. And Greg Hansford coming back into the pits again as team leader. Dick Johnson comes through the Bridgestone S's, now back onto the Super Bowl once again. checkered flag ready to come out for Dick Johnson. Setting him up. The last corner comes up. Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 years, the headlights are ablaze. Johnson has won a round of the Touring Car Nationals. He takes round 5 of the Shell Ultra Nationals today at Adelaide Raceway. Look at the dice for second in the background. George Fury in the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline, and Alan Grice nose to tail across the line. He's finally done it. The crowd has erupted at Adelaide Raceway for Queensland's favourite son, Dick Johnson, the winner of round 5 in the nifty little Shell Ultra High Cosworth. Let's convince